But there was no books. Okay, let's remove this concept to say that books were removed. No books were removed.
Really?
No books were removed.
So what happened to the other? Okay, maybe that's okay. Let me just give you.
We're getting into that one. No books were removed.
Okay.
What happened is that the first canon that happened was that the first books, the 66 ones that we have, they were part of what Jerome established and combined all together. Then the concept of you saying there were books that were removed, they were not removed. They were a later addition to that. They were not there originally.
Okay.
So they were then later on added. We have Genesis until I think it's Malachi. So between Malachi and Matthew, that period, that's where most of these books came about, especially the Old Testament books. You know, the likes of Maccabees, Judith, and so on. There are about 7 of them. So that's where they. So the reason why they were not added, you'd say that they were not removed. They were not added because they were not seen as the canon, as authoritative as they should be, because they were not there officially. The other reason was that they were not included because of authorship, because of several reasons as well, you know. Some even believe that Jesus and the disciples never quoted from those books. So that's why they were not added. So they were later on addition. So they are seen as the second canon, not the first canon. We have the first canon that includes the 66 books, and then we have the second edition of the canon. That is where these books that most people tend to say they were forgotten, they were lost, they were not.
I actually, I have an actually interesting question on that.
Sure.
There are actually some references of those books in the Old Testament. For example, you find one,
It's the book of Jude,
the book of Joshua.
Oh, okay.
I think in the Bible it references says, as you've heard this in the book of Joshua. I may not have the accurate reference, but there are those books that in the New Old Testament they mention them. So just to question that, to say how does that work? Because
if they mention,
you open the Old Testament, not all of them, but some of them are actually referenced.
Indeed.
In terms in the Old Testament.
One of the well-known ones is the book of Jude. It references the book of Enoch, of which we know very well. Within our 66 books, we don't have the book of Enoch. And so the reason why it's not added, the book of Enoch, is that some Bible scholars, it's not a universal concept, but some, they believe that because it is a quote of a quote, so Jude is quoting from Enoch, but they say Enoch is quoting from Deuteronomy. So that's why then it's not added, because it's a quote of a quote.
Oh, and a book that's already in the Bible.
That's already there,
Got
you know. So that's why then it's not added. So, but I'm not familiar with that one. But we still have other sessions. We'll still cover.
All right. No, that's
Sure.
That's
Okay, cool.
fine.
So that's really interesting to learn. You see what happens when you actually listen to people on social media.
Indeed.
Like now, I thought there were books removed. Okay. So I've also heard that some books were not included because there were people that would claim to be certain authors.
Yeah.
And say, for example, I'm one of the author who lived within this time, and now they're adding their own scripts.
Sure.
To the book. Is that part of the reason why some of them were not included? Because some claim to be people they were not.
Correct. That is one of the reasons as well. That's why I did mention earlier, is that the authorship is one of the reasons. It's the problem.
Okay.
Authorship, because we don't know who wrote the book. So it was just later on. And the other problem is that they were not written in the original language. That's why, because we're focusing on the Old Testament books that were not included here. So they were not written in the Hebrew language. And obviously, if it's in the Old Testament, it should be written in the Hebrew language. So that is one of the reasons why they were not added. So that's the reasons why they have around it. Yeah, so you're very much correct.
Okay.
All right.